Hello there and a very good evening to you. You're live here on GHOne TV. It's time for News Tonight with me, Natalie. For a look at our top stories. President Mahama pushes for stronger economic ties with other nations as he says imposition of US tariffs will have severe implications for affected nations.
It is unfortunate that without resorting to the rules-based system, one country unilaterally decides to increase tariffs across board on all countries.
Also coming up, AFCFTA Secretary General urges member states to respond to imposition of US tariffs by consolidating intra-continental trade. Also ahead this evening, ranking member on Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee writes to the Dean of Diplomatic Corps to intervene in Gran, Canaria flight scandal. Details as the diplomatic community is asked to take keen interest in the protection of Reverend Intim Fodjor. Labour consultant hails government's decision to suspend post-retirement contract appointments with immediate effect.
We are not training people. We are not developing the skills of the people. We are not doing mentoring and coaching well. And that is the problem of Ghana.
We bring you the details of these stories and much more news here on News Tonight Tuesday.
GHOne OV van has been one of the best vans I've used personally in this country. It runs a system where we are able to run on Dante to be able to do our broadcast mixed well also from this van.
I've used this OB van for quite a number of big productions, i.e. 3 music awards, the late President Rollis' state funeral, Intra-Africa awards, and a number of them.
My experience with the GHOne van has been the state of the art equipment they have. Personal experience is you can use it for both indoor and outdoor, all events, conferencing, like anything you need a van to work for you, GHOne provides it. My experience with the van has been very good. Why? Because it has a number of facilities that I may not get in other vans. You know, the van has a very wide bench that can accommodate all my technical crew. ICC, switcher, graphics, CG, and all of that. And then it also has a studio, a green room studio that comes with TriCaster. So if you want somebody to do commentary on a live event, you can put that presenter who's in that studio as well and get that running. To give an experience to our audience, we're also watching on TV.
You're watching News Tonight here on GHOne TV. Our bulletin streams live for a global audience on Facebook and X at GHOne TV. We begin the bulletin tonight with insight. Top on the news this evening, Ranking Member on Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee, Samuel Abu-Jinapor, says he has formally written to the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps and Ambassador of the Republic of Lebanon to Ghana, His Excellency Mahir Kier, to intervene in the ongoing Gran, Canaria flights scandal. According to the Damongo MP, the letter written on behalf of the minority caucus on the committee is asking the ambassador to use diplomatic channels to collaborate with the Ghanaian security and intelligence community to unravel, quote, the puzzle, conundrum and controversy surrounding the matter, end quote. The group also wants the diplomatic community to take keen interest in the protection of a Sin South MP and Ranking Member of Parliament's Defence and Interior Committee, John Intim Fodjor. Now, I'll be telling you more on what the minority caucus is seeking, but first, Mr. Abu-Jinapor in a Facebook write-up justifies why this move has become necessary. Now, Deputy Editor Nadede Tete joins me in studio with more on this issue. Now, first of all, run us through the ranking member's initial argument.
Okay, so Natalie, this thing started on the 1st of April. So the ranking member, first of all, start by talking about the press briefing that was had by the ranking member of the Defense and Interior Committee, Reverend Intim Fodjor, that presser he had on the 1st of April, where he made the allegations of these flights coming in and carrying illicit drugs and money as well, money laundering, he claims. Then he continues to talk about the reactions that came in thereafter. We saw many people reacting and commenting and calling for investigations. We had some security experts talking about the need for an investigation, with some of them even berating somewhat the ranking member for the channel he used. Some of the security analysts believed that he could have opted for a better route, which is to perhaps write to the security agencies and then ask for a briefing or relay the information to the various national security apparatus, but that did not happen. What we saw was that the minister, the ranking member, subsequently after President John Dramani Mahama called for an investigation, asked him to collaborate with these institutions, including NACOG, to investigate the matter. So the ranking member references all these and the investigations that were called for, including that of the United Nations Office on Drugs as well. Then it gets a little political, where he talks about the government spokesperson on the Minister in charge of Government Communications, Felix Kwachu Fusu, where according to the ranking member, Felix Kwachifuzo attempted to make a U-turn with regard to the investigations that the president had called for, essentially insinuating, according to the ranking member, that this was just to make a scapegoat out of the ranking member, because ideally, the interview that the government communications minister talked about, he said that ideally this is not something that they should put some weight on, but they wanted to, make a lesson out of the ranking member. So that's the point where it tends a little political. Yes.
Right. Now, he also touches on some confirmed checks.
Yes. He goes on to talk about some checks that have been done that confirm the minority's position that these flights came in. He, however, does not tell which checks are those. But what I recall off my head is that some media houses have done those checks. I've even seen some blogs also do those checks where they corroborate what he is saying here about some of the flights routes that the minister talked about not corroborating with what he had said earlier. For instance, one of them coming from Luanda to Ghana. He says, in fact, the flight, according to the minorities, the flight came straight from the Gran Canaria Islands, which is in Spain, all the way to Ghana, instead of the Luanda that the minister claims it came from. And then he also talks about questions being raised about the activity history of Cavoc flights that the minister referenced. And he says that searches have not shown that these flights flew into the country on the set dates. And that's why he says there's a need for further investigation.
Right. Now, quite interesting. Now, finally, he makes reference to some treaties and some laws. Run us through that.
Yes. He talks about the enactment of the Narcotics Control Commission Act 2020, Act 1019, which was elevated. It was then the ESWA Narcotics Control Board and subsequently elevated to the Narcotics Commission, and empowered to prevent illicit trade in drugs and anti-money laundering as well. That's the Anti-Money Laundering Act 2020, Act 1044, which consolidated laws relating to the prohibition of money laundering and re-established the Financial Intelligence Center, FIC, which enhanced powers to deal with money laundering as well. Then he argues that it is important to continue to work with the international community to ensure that the implementation of these laws to prevent Ghana from becoming a transit point for the movement of illicit drugs and proceeds as well. He says that such a situation could have serious political and economic as well as diplomatic implications for our country, and that is why it is very important, especially for a troubled region like ours. But this is all coming at a time where the ranking member has also not been able to prove explicitly that this is his contrary evidence. We've heard him consistently talk about how he does not believe government's proof. If it had come from the security agencies, he would have believed them. But as of now, he's yet to prove strictly that these flights, yes, came in, that is not in doubt, but did they carry drugs or money, as he has claimed?
Very interesting. Now, and talking about the ranking member, you're referring specifically to
Reverend Intim Forjo, right? Yes.
We'll see how this unfolds now.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for the details and the updates on this. Now, to exactly what the Minority Caucus on the Foreign Affairs Committee is requesting from the diplomatic corps in Ghana. There you see on your screens. I'm going to run through a few details as per specifically the request being made. And without a doubt, it reads, we cannot be successful in combating these transnational crimes if we fail to investigate allegations such as this. For it is only through investigations that we can establish the veracity or otherwise of such allegations, and where appropriate, prosecute offenders to serve as deterrents to others. It's also through such investigations that we can gather credible intelligence to prevent these crimes. And as you just heard my colleague now highlight, this is from the ranking member on Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee, directed at the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps. Specifically, it reads, I therefore call on the diplomatic community in Ghana to intervene by way of the following. Firstly, share with the Ghanaian security authorities any intelligence that they may have on the aircrafts and flights concerned. Secondly, facilitate the deployment of the security apparatus of their respective countries to collaborate with the Ghanaian security authorities in any future investigations. Another request being put forward is to assist the Ghanaian state through her arms of government generally and Parliament in particular to avoid the undesirable, unenvious and dangerous reputation of a drug state. Fourthly, encourage through diplomatic channels the Ghanaian government to establish, pursuant to Article 278 of the Constitution of Ghana, a commission of inquiry to make a full, faithful and impartial inquiry into the matter of the flights allegedly carrying illicit drugs and money, as well as take keen interest in the protection of the independence of Ghana's parliament in the exercise of its oversight responsibility, especially the safety and protection of the whistleblower, here referring to the Honourable GHOne Ntim Fodjwo, Member of Parliament for Sin South and Ranking Member of Parliament's Defence and Interior Committee, as well as other members of Parliament in the sacred discharge of their duties as MPs. So these are the requests being put forward to the Dean of Diplomatic Corps. Now we've got Dr. Ishmael Hlovo, an international relations analyst, joining now via phone. Good evening to you, Doc. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Now, first of all, in your view, is this action by the Minority Caucus on the Foreign Affairs Committee, is it one that is justifiable? Yes, Doc, if you can hear me, I was asking if you, in your view, this action taken by the Minority Caucus and on the Foreign Affairs Committee is a justified one. You're working the phone lines there to reach Dr. Ishmael Hlovo. Yes, please do carry on. I can hear you now.
Okay, so I'm saying that this has become part and parcel of our political game where over time we involve the diplomatic corps in issues that are essentially an internal affair that have to be handled. So I believe that this is one of the options open to them, but looking at the issue and how it has evolved so far, I'm not sure this is the best option they have, because but I'm struggling to make a meaning of the allegation, because not so much evidence has been produced by the minority to back their claim that we should investigate the allegations. And at the same time, they are not giving the state security agencies enough time to embark on the investigation, and then they are involving the diplomatic corps. I think that this is not the right course of action. There are so many channels open to them here to be able to force an inquiry. Of course, if they have evidence, they could give those evidence to the security agencies to enable them facilitate the investigation. If you look at some of the things they are demanding, for instance, we are calling on the diplomatic community to help the government and give any evidence that they may have, then where is your own evidence? If you have enough evidence on the issue, then you should bring forth those evidence. So I think that is just part of the politicking that have become part and parcel of our game to put pressure on government and then invariably damaging our own international standing.
Right, Doc. So you say it's just a politicking, it's not the right course of action, and the minority has provided little evidence on this issue. Now, realistically, how far can diplomats go, really, in involving themselves in this matter?
They can do very little, except that to inform their home government about the development. If their home government, in their understanding, thinks that this is an issue that affects their interests, then the home government may want to put some pressure on the government of Ghana. But as diplomats, they have little influence in what they do. But because we have given the diplomatic corps a lot of leeway in Ghana, that is why you see parties running to them. Ideally, they are not supposed to engage in some of this. But then because we have opened the society up and have empowered them through these activities. Remember, just some few months ago, the MPP was complaining about the interference of diplomats in the political discourse of this nation, and now they have run back to the same diplomats. So, in as much as we want to do politics, in as much as we want to ensure that we win political power, we must do so bearing in mind that we have a nation to build, a Ghana to protect. And this is not so good for the image of this country. It's not so good for the reputation of this country going forward.
Right. Thank you very much for your time and insights this evening. Dr. Ishmael Hlovo, International Relations Analyst, joining us on that issue. We'll certainly keep a keen eye on that and see how it develops and bring you the latest as it happens. That's how we wrap up Insights tonight. So live here on News Tonight on GHOne TV. Let's head to the courts now, as the Supreme Court is expected to hear an interlocutory injunction application filed by Vincent Eko Assefuwa, Member of Parliament for Old Tafo, against the procedure being used by President John Dramani Mahama to potentially remove Chief Justice Gertrude Torkornoo from office. Assefuwa's application seeks to halt the removal process, arguing that the President must notify the Chief Justice and obtain her comments before initiating consultation with the Council of State. The plaintiff is invoking the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, seeking declarations on the interpretation of constitutional provisions governing the removal of a Chief Justice. Now, our legal affairs correspondent Murtala Inusa has joined us with what to expect from the courts on this issue. Murtala, it's good to have you. Now, firstly, since this case was filed, as we know, the Chief Justice was asked to respond to these petitions, and you're aware that she's presented same to the President as well as the Council of State. With that being the case, what exactly is left for the Supreme Court to determine on this matter?
So, Natalie, thank you very much for having me. We do know that when this matter was filed, the petitions in question have not been sent to the Chief Justice, and her comment at the time has also not been given to the presidency before the hearing of this application. All this has been done, and so it begs the question: is there really a case for the Supreme Court to deal with it? What is before the court tomorrow is that the substantive matter is pending, but they are challenging the process, asking the president or the court to stop the president from initiating all these processes taken to remove the Chief Justice. But somebody will ask, all these activities have taken place within this period before the date fixed for hearing. But of course, the hearing of the Supreme Court or date fixed for hearing are also not cast in iron stone. What I mean by that is that if the Supreme Court, at this tomorrow, if the Supreme Court is of the view that events that have taken place before tomorrow in such a way that the application before the court is moot, what it means is that it will be struck out as moot. The applicant on its own can also volunteer to withdraw the application, which will be struck out as moot. Again, if the court decides that it is heard, parties will have to file their processes, which I do know that the respondents in the matter for the applicant, Vincent Assefuwa, being led by the former Attorney General Godfrey Adami, we have filed their processes and all of that.
All right.
If the Attorney General's office is also convinced they also file their processes, then the court will deal with it. But automatically, it is not fixed in iron stone that when the court sits tomorrow and decide that there's nothing to be heard because the event has the override matter, the decision will be taken by the Supreme Court.
Very well. Murtala Inusa, thank you so much for that. Our legal affairs correspondent. Then do stay with us here on GHOne TV. Certainly we'll bring you the latest as it happens from the court tomorrow. You're watching News Tonight here on GHOne TV. In a related development, private legal practitioner and senior member of the CPP, Kwame Jantwa, is suggesting that Chief Justice Gertrude Torkornoo should step down from her position as her responses to the petitions for her removal are being considered. The Chief Justice on Monday, April 7 this year, submitted her official response to the petition seeking her removal from office following a 10-day grace period given by President Mahama. Her response paves way for the Council of State to begin its review process to determine whether a prima facie case exists to warrant further proceedings. However, speaking on GH Today this morning, Kwame Jantwa says it will help her case if the CJ Torkornoo steps aside until the petition issue is concluded.
At this material moment, the CJ should recuse herself from paneling any bench because of this case.
Indeed, the day the announcement came, the following morning, CJ was a chair of a panel. I was in Supreme Court. She was a chair of a panel that had case.
It could help her case.
To step aside?
If she says aside, look, with all this going on, I would rather step aside from my responsibilities and hand over to the one till this case is done. I think, for me, I think the law doesn't bar her, but I think it would work in her favor. That's the way I see it. But I'm not saying she should, but I think it would look better for her if she did that. There's huge responsibility in being a Supreme Court judge. And if fingers are being pointed at you, I think it sits well for her to take that move. But who am I? It's just an opinion. It's just an opinion.
Well, meanwhile, Associate Professor at the University of Ghana Law School, Professor Kojo Appiagyei-Tua, is urging the government to be tactful in handling the situation. He spoke to Nadede Tete earlier on Morning Star.
If in the tenure of the Chief Justice is appointed by a president, and the process for appointing him or her is quite loose, so that the Chief Justice could be at the beck and call of the president, and that itself can make the Chief Justice weak in terms of controlling any excesses to be committed by the executive in particular, but also by Parliament. It could happen that those persons in office may have committed some serious infractions which merit their removal from office. But if looking at it, we have to, study carefully and measure the political temperature and the fact that Ghanaians are looking at the issue with their political lenses, as we usually do, because a lot of issues are politicized. And so when these issues come up, we don't look at the legality or the legal processes which have been followed, but rather at it from the political lens. And so even if a case could be made for removal of office of the Chief Justice, the EC, and so on, a lot of political wisdom and tactfulness should be used, and it has to be a case of last resort, where we applying the law. People understand that it is the law that is being applied, and at the end of the day, it is to ensure that our democracy is put on a firm basis to consolidate our democracy. Otherwise, it can lead to political chaos, and that will open the floodgates for the loosening of our democratic credentials, and that can cause disaster at the end of the day.
Well, away from the court, Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Emmanuel Ama Kofi Bua, has expressed concern over the public perception of the Lands Commission as he vows to transform its image positively. He attributed this negative image to delays in processing land documents, which he believes contributes to the growing dissatisfaction. Addressing workers during a Durbar, the minister emphasized that its staff prioritize efficiency and integrity. It could help improve the Commission's reputation, potentially leading to better ratings in Afrobarometer surveys.
The people of Ghana, this is their view of the Lands Commission. And I'm going to say it as honestly as I can, as I have listened. Despite all the good people here and the hard work, they think that the Lands Commission is one of the most corrupt places in Ghana. I don't believe it. Do you? The people of Ghana believe it. And so there's a lot I want us to share. I don't know how long I'm going to be a minister, but I'm going to wake up every morning and thank God for this opportunity and work with you to make the big difference we can.
He also pledged to facilitate the $165 million funding for the Commission's digital mapping project.
we need $165 million thereabout to completely map the whole lands of Ghana. That fundamentally changes everything as it is right now. If I have a plot in Elembele and I want that, I have to drive to Takrady, get the surveyor to drive there with the thing, come and survey, map, go to Takrady, and luckily if I go and the officer is there, or maybe come next week, when we can digitally identify the location and quickly map it out without all that. Exactly what I want to do as minister is whatever it takes. Me and you will find the 165 million to digitalize. Because I've been told that
Now, Executive Secretary of the Lands Commission, Ben Arthur, also says the Commission has taken steps to address the negative perception.
Yes, and the Lands Commission hasn't run away from the fact that our dealings and our processes lend itself to the possibility of people influencing and staff and other people to be corrupt. So steps are being taken to try and address that. But at the same time, we also know that it is fueled essentially by the perception and the fact that there are individuals not within the Commission who also take advantage of our situation and then extort money from people. We have tried severally to use public engagement and education to ask people to deal directly with the Commission. It achieved some results, and we are trying to put some systems in place to address that perception. However, these have been going on for a very long time as to lands that have been allocated or leased out to individuals. I think the import of the concerns were whether or not the lands have been allocated, I won't say sold, have been leased out to individuals in the manner that it should. There are several different opinions to that. So the presidency has requested for a comprehensive report on that, which we have submitted. I'm sure that it will be reviewed because the circumstances differ for each parcel of land. So we want to wait for the review, and then the outcome of the review would indicate the way forward. But I understand that the minister is in consultation with the Lands Commission and other bodies to look at the possibility of doing an engagement on the management of public land generally, so that the principles, the laws and the rules surrounding these management issues in respect of public land will be addressed at a proper, larger stakeholder forum for all inputs, so we know how to manage public lands better going forward.
Well, next on News Tonight, we bring you business news. In business news this evening, President John Dramani Mahama has described the recent tariffs imposed by the United States of America on Ghana and other African nations as having very severe implications for affected countries on the continent. Speaking after holding bilateral talks with President of the Czech Republic, Peter Pavel, who is on a 3-day state visit, President Mahama underscored the need for stronger economic ties rather than unilateral measures that only benefits one country.
We all accepted a rule-based trading system, and it has served the world well because it has led to quite significant growth in GDP across the world. It is unfortunate that without resorting to the rules-based system, one country unilaterally decides to increase tariffs across board on all countries. Ghana got slapped with 10%, which is the lowest in the tariffs that were rolled out. But a country like Lesotho got slapped with 46%. And if you understand that one of the largest contributors to Lesotho's economy is the trade and garments industry, export under AGOA to United States, then you can be sure that it's going to affect a small country like Lesotho. Many of the factories that have set up there might look for areas where they can receive cheaper tariffs, to be able to continue to export into the American market. So it has very severe implications for everybody. And I believe that a multilateral world serves us all better than unilateral world, where people just take decisions based on only their country's interests. We must look at the broader global partnerships and the global interests rather than just our parochial national interests.
Meanwhile, President of the Czech Republic, Petr Pavel, has urged the United States to rethink its approach and consider constructive dialogue with its trade partners. According to him, the unilateral decision is unfortunately harmful and one that is detrimental to global trade and economic stability for most countries, including the EU and Asia.
I think imposing tariffs in such a brutal way really doesn't help either side. It will not help the situation in Africa, but it will not help situation in Europe, Asia, and even United States. Tariff wars are damaging everyone. So in my view, it is really unfortunate to impose such a broad wave of tariffs without negotiating. Countries, especially countries that are allies, should first negotiate, and only when they are not able to come to an agreement, they can exert some pressure. But we haven't explored the opportunities of negotiating. With regard to a number of African and Asian countries, especially those that belong amongst the poorest globally, like Lesotho or Cambodia and Laos, they are charged by the biggest tariffs in history. It could be easily destroying their economies. So I really think that we have to collectively address the United States to rethink this approach and to negotiate, because I believe only by negotiating we can achieve a result that will be both beneficial for the United States, balancing more their trade with the world, but also not destroying countries, because by damaging their economies so much, it would create a number of problems that will have to be dealt with later on that may prove much more costly.
Meanwhile, Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area, Wamkele Mene, has indicated that the various tariffs imposed on African products entering the United States is a wake-up call for the continent to consolidate intra-continental trade. According to him, this crisis should be converted into economic prosperity by harmonizing trade across the continent. These comments were made during the signing of a memorandum of understanding between the AFTA Secretariat and the National Bar Association.
On April 3, 2025, President Donald Trump announced the imposition of trade tariffs on countries, including those on the continent of Africa. Ghana received a share of 10%, with Lesotho 50% being the highest on the continent. Delivering a speech at the signing of the MOU, Wamkele Mene emphasized the importance of trade liberalization across the continent of Africa, citing the American tariffs as a wake-up call.
Given the announcement that was made about the direction that the United States is taking in respect of trade policy, particularly as it relates to the continent of Africa, I therefore have to express a view. The ministers of trade will meet on the 14th of April to deliberate on this matter and exactly how our continent should respond. What I can tell you now is that this signals and should compel us as Africans to accelerate developing a commercially viable trade market in Africa. What is clear is that we cannot rely on markets in other parts of the world for our own prosperity as a continent.
On his part, Willie Adams, president of the National Bar Association, highlighted the crucial role the diaspora, especially legal professionals, can play in economic and trade integration of Africa and called for effective collaboration.
This is why our partnership matters. The diaspora has a vital role to play. We are not disconnected from Africa's future. We are a part of it. We bring legal expertise, global networks, and a deep-rooted passion to see Africa rise. Now more than ever, Africa's success is the world's success, and especially our success. With a population of over 1.4 billion people and a median age of 19, Africa is the youngest and one of the fastest growing regions in the world. By 2050, 1 in 4 people on this planet will be African. But for this demographic dividend to become an economic one, we must accelerate the implementation of the AFCFTA, and we must do so with urgency.
The memorandum provides a platform for engaging dialogue on the legal and economic frameworks that support trade and investment across the African continent. It also aims to strengthen diaspora engagement in the AFCFTA through formalized cooperation between the Secretariat and the American National Bar Association.
Well, that's all the business news we've got for you this evening. More business news on our website, starfm.com.gh. Sports news is next. Do stay.
Every morning, I wake up to this miracle sleeping.
Hi there, I am Nana Ama Ajmana. The Ministry of Sport and Recreation has inaugurated a committee to investigate the death of Nigerian boxer Gabriel Oluwasegun, who tragically collapsed during a boxing bout at the Bukom Boxing Arena on March 29. The 7-member committee, led by His Excellency Amakai Amatefio, has been tasked with investigating and determining the circumstances surrounding the boxer's death. In his acceptance speech, His Excellency Amatefio expressed gratitude to the minister for placing confidence in the team and assured that their findings will be submitted within the stipulated 21-day period.
It is important, very, very important, as far as the safety and the security of our young people who participate in sports are concerned. And I think this is a very paramount consideration in this assignment, that participation in sports should be safe for the participants. I've looked very carefully at the terms of reference, and I believe that the areas of concern are very legitimate, very well covered, and we shall not hesitate. We will not be intimidated by the enormity of this assignment, and we shall look at this work with expedition. We've been given 21 days, but I believe that we should be able to do it in less than 21 days.
Now, the race for the Ghana Premier League title is heating up, with Kumasi Asante Kotoko currently leading the pack closely, followed by BBNE Gold Stars, determined to take the top spot. In this explainer, I share my insight on the intense title race and what it means for the teams involved.
Ghana Premier League is back again. I say this is our.
We are down to the final 9 games in the Ghana Premier League, and the title race, along with the relegation battle, is absolutely thrilling. BBNE Gold Stars have been one of the surprising teams this season. And it currently sits second on the league table, just 2 points behind Kumasi Asante Kotoko. So the big question is, will Prosper Nate Ogum lead Kotoko to win the league?
Let's take it game by game. That's the most important thing. Let's take the games in perspective, one after the other.
I must admit, there's something that worries me a lot. Why do teams that win the title often struggle the following season? Take FC Samatex, for example.
There we go! Premier League champion. Since the days of
They won the league last season, and you would expect them to be defending their title strongly. However, they are now sitting in the 9th place on the league table. This pattern has also affected other teams like Midiama SC, Kumasi Asante Kotoko, Accra Hearts of Oak in recent years. And speaking of disappointment, what is really happening with Accra Lions? Since their debut in the 2021-22 season, they have shown real promise, even finishing second last season, but now they are dangerously close to relegation. At this point, the title race is widely open and it could go in any direction. So, who left the 2024-25 Ghana Premier League trophy? Will it be Kumasi Asante Kotoko? Nations